Welcome to This Explainer. Look, today we are unpacking something incredibly urgent. It's a fascinating 2026 manifesto conceptualized by Amir.M.Ardalan called the Five Windows Perspective. We aren't treating this like some dusty piece of literature, but rather as a profound diagnostic manual for civilizational survival. Ardalan is looking at a society in deep crisis and asking a massive question. How can ancient heritage be functionally translated to solve modern, systemic problems? It's a dense, high-stakes framework, and we're going to carefully deconstruct exactly how it works. The framework kicks off with a really striking diagnostic premise. Ardalan argues that society is suffocating. But he doesn't just mean a physical suffocation, it's profoundly linguistic and institutional. Think about it. We've experienced a complete betrayal of language. Vital concepts that once held immense power and functional utility, words like justice, freedom, and property, have been totally hollowed out. They aren't problem-solving tools anymore, they're empty rituals. We're looking for lost truth buried under a mountain of empty words. And it's this exact crisis that demands a completely new approach to how a civilization views its own foundations. Okay, let's dive into this. To find a way out, Ardalan maps out two failed paradigms that currently dominate how we treat our heritage. First up is blind nostalgia. This is worshiping the past as a museum exhibit. It places history on a pedestal for silent reverence, which essentially strips it of any practical, real-world use for today. On the flip side, you have modernist rejection. This entirely dismisses civilizational heritage as just an embarrassing collection of superstitions and myths, refusing to engage with it at all. According to the manifesto, both of these paths lead straight to a dead end, because they completely fail to extract any functional value from the past.
And that dead end brings us to an absolutely crucial concept. Functional Druj. Now, in ancient Persian philosophy, Druj represents the lie, or chaos, but Ardalan modernizes this into a razor-sharp structural critique. Functional Druj happens when concepts lose their original problem-solving efficiency. Instead of organizing society, these ideas degrade. They literally become weapons to preserve the status quo, or they turn into bureaucratic justifications for power. For example, when justice devolves into nothing more than a dusty file in a broken legal system, or freedom is just a mandated slogan shouted from a podium, that concept has fallen into functional Druj. It doesn't solve a problem anymore, it just masks one.
So if nostalgia and rejection are both massive failures, what exactly is the alternative? Well, Ardalan proposes the third way, what he calls rational functional reconstruction. And I want you to notice the precision of that terminology. This is not about romanticizing history. It's a surgical scalpel designed to cut right through myth and propaganda. The goal is to translate ancient problem-solving patterns into modern institutional blueprints. It treats the past as a massive database of solutions that, if we decode them properly, can answer the eternal questions of social coordination today.
To use this scalpel effectively, we have to rely on three theoretical foundations. First, historical functionalism. The idea here is that ancient concepts, way before they were ever myths or religious symbols, were originally pragmatic tools designed for social coordination. But over time, they degrade. And that brings us to historical pathology, where they suffer from that functional drudge we just talked about. They deviate from their purpose. Finally, we have modern co-structuring. This recognizes that every single ancient functional concept has a direct structural equivalent in the modern world. Our job isn't to force the past into the present, but to find that exact structural match.
But before the actual analysis can even begin, there's a mandatory starting point called Window Zero. This represents the analyst's position, and it is a strict demand for total transparency. The analyst has to clearly state their historical, cultural, and epistemological coordinates. In the context of this manifesto, the position is laid bare. It's written from the perspective of a war-torn researcher in the AI era of 2026, deeply concerned with functional institutional design. You literally cannot objectively decode the past if you don't first acknowledge exactly where you're standing in the present.
Let's move to the core of the framework and see how this builds. We have 5 sequential steps, the 5 windows. It starts at the root, isolating a concept's oldest textual core and stripping away centuries of interpretation. Then, we pinpoint its historical function, defining the actual real-world social problem it originally solved. Next, we track the deviation, identifying exactly when and how it fell into functional Druj. After that, we leap to the present to find its modern equivalent, the contemporary structural peer of this ancient tool. And finally, we extract the operational principle, a clear, actionable rule for modern institutional design.
Now, abstract theory is fascinating, right? But it demands application. This brings us to a really critical pivot point in our explainer.
how do we practically translate these ancient myths into modern institutional blueprints using these 5 windows? I mean, how does a god from antiquity actually become a line of code or a modern policy in the 21st century?
And this brilliantly illustrates the translation process. Let's look at Mithra. Traditionally, people view Mithra as just a sun god, a piece of romantic myth. But its true historical function, it was actually a mechanism to guarantee contracts and social agreements. So, its modern peer, automated, self-executing smart contracts. Next, look at Verethragna, which is often dismissed as a mere god of war. Its actual function was systemic resilience and removing blockages. Its modern equivalent is institutional crisis management and economic resilience protocols. This is rational functional reconstruction in action, and honestly, it is incredible to see.
From those specific case studies, we arrive at the extraction of the operational principle. By functionally translating Verethragna and Mithra, a highly powerful executive rule for institutional design emerges. True efficiency is found in removing systemic obstacles and ensuring contract authenticity, not in the exercise of absolute coercive power. Think about that. True systemic resilience doesn't look like a dictator dominating a system. Rather, it looks like a smoothly operating network where agreements are inherently guaranteed and structural friction is continuously eliminated.
So, what does this all mean for us? How do we actually measure if our new institutions are working, or if they're slipping back into the lie, the Druj? Ardalan introduces the concept of Asha as the ultimate diagnostic gauge. And Asha isn't some mystical cosmic order here, it's a strict executive checklist. Does the system provide predictability? Does it ensure viability, meaning does it actually enhance life? And does it create synergy, reducing friction between its moving parts? If an institution, whether that's a legal system, an economic policy, or a smart contract, fails this 3-part gauge, it is mathematically and functionally in a state of Druj.
It's absolutely crucial we clarify what this overarching project, called the Persian Renaissance, actually means in this context. Let me be clear, this is not about returning to past glory. It's not about dressing up in ancient clothing or reviving dead empires. That's the dead end of nostalgia. Instead, this Renaissance is strictly defined as functional translation for the future. It's about equipping modern humans with the institutional architecture they desperately need to survive and thrive, drawing directly on the deeply tested, problem-solving DNA of their own civilizational past.
The manifesto closes by anchoring this entire structural methodology firmly in human agency. Ardalan writes, "Truth is not a cosmic fate. It is a choice made in every moment. We are still breathing. We are still choosing." This imparts such a powerful philosophical weight to the framework. Civilizational order, Asha, is not something that just passively happens to us. It isn't decreed by the stars. It is an active, daily, highly practical choice made through the institutions we build, the concepts we clarify, and the language we refuse to let hollow out.
We are living in an era where the functional decay of our concepts is visible all around us. The 5 windows perspective hands us a scalpel and essentially asks us to get to work. It reminds us that as long as we are still breathing, the responsibility to choose truth and design functional systems remains squarely on our shoulders. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final, provocative thought to consider for your own systems and communities. What will you choose to reconstruct?